Chapter 1. The rainy night at the village gate. The rain had been falling since the afternoon. Endless and heavy, each drop sharp as a needle striking the earth. It poured over An's head, soaking through his thin coat until it clung to his body. The dirt road stretched before him, winding into the night, swallowed by mist. The crooked trees on either side scraped their branches together, cracking like bones, the sound eerily resembling laughter hidden in the storm. And trudged on, each step sinking into mud. Ahead, through the pale veil of mist, the silhouette of the ancient village emerged, isolated, as if cut off from the living world. No lamps burned, no sound stirred, only rain and the frantic pounding of his heart. He reached the stone gate, moss-covered and fractured with deep cracks like wounds carved into rock. Through a flash of lightning, he read the blood-red words etched across its surface. Whoever remains past the third drumbeat shall never leave with their soul intact. A chilling gust of wind whipped through the gate, raising gooseflesh along his neck. In turn, instinct urging him to flee, but the path behind had vanished. Only a wall of thick, suffocating fog remained. Another bolt of lightning tore across the sky. For an instant, and saw her. A woman in a long white dress stood at the far end of the village path, hair cascading down to hide her face. And froze, breath caught. He blinked. The figure was gone. Taking a trembling breath, and stepped through the gate. Behind him, the heavy stone doors slammed shut with a deafening groan, like a tomb sealing forever. In that moment, he knew he had entered a place not meant for the living. Chapter 2. The Sealed House. The village lay silent, deathly still. No barking of dogs, no crowing of roosters, only the storm above and the whispering wind threading through the rotting houses. It moved cautiously, his flashlight beam slicing a thin line through the fog. He felt eyes upon him, unseen but watching. His chest tightened, breath short. Among the crumbling ruins, one wooden house stood more intact than the rest. Its door was covered in yellowed talismans, brittle with age, their black ink smudged yet still reeking faintly of burnt incense. He approached. The air turned colder, pressing against his skin. His hand brushed the wood, and a chill seeped through his bones. The door creaked open on its own, a dark slit yawning like a mouth. A foul stench of mold and rot burst out, heavy and suffocating. Steeling himself, and pushed inside, the hinges shrieked, echoing like a cry of anguish. Darkness consumed the interior. Dust blanketed a shrine table. Yet a single stick of incense smoldered, its ember faintly glowing as if freshly lit. And staggered back. This village had been abandoned for decades. Who could have lit it? Then, the oil lamp on the altar flared to life, its flame burning an unnatural green. Shadows writhed along the walls, revealing streaks of dried blood smeared across the floor. Above him, the sound of footsteps creaked across the loft. Slow, heavy, deliberate, An's breath hitched, eyes fixed on the staircase. And then he saw it, bare feet pale as wax. Stepping down one by one. Someone, or something, was descending. Chapter 3. The mirror in the attic. And stumbled backward, heart hammering, but the footsteps stopped mid-descent. Silence thickened, pressing down like a weight. His flashlight flickered weakly against the gloom. Then, from above, came a rasping chuckle, low and strangled, as though from a throat crushed by unseen hands. It died as suddenly as it began, summoning what little courage remained, and climbed the stairs. Each step groaned beneath his weight, threatening to collapse. A frigid wind spilled from the attic, biting through his skin. At the far corner stood a tall mirror, its wooden frame carved with strange patterns, half rotted by time, yet the glass gleamed unnaturally clear. And approached, pulse thundering. His reflection stared back, yet not his reflection. The eyes glowed red, blood vessels bulging, and the mouth stretched into a grotesque grin that split the face unnaturally wide. And staggered back. The figure in the mirror did not retreat with him. Instead, it leaned forward, raising one hand while it remained frozen. The glass rippled. A withered black hand burst through the surface, its nails long and jagged like talons. The mirror quivered, rattling violently, and that same guttural laughter roared throughout the attic. "You have broken the seal, there is no turning back," and screamed, stumbling as the flashlight tumbled from his grip, its beam sweeping wildly. On the walls, smeared in dried blood, Words glistened in the green lamplight. Run and you die. Stay and you die. Only suffering remains. The black hand stretched further. Its claws inches from his throat. Chapter 4. The Curse in the Shrine. Just as the black hand was about to close around his neck, a thunderclap split the heavens. The attic shuddered. The mirror cracked apart, shards scattering across the floor. The hand vanished, but the laughter lingered, crawling through the wooden beams as though the house itself mocked him. And snatched up his flashlight and bolted, crashing out into the storm-soaked night. The path carried him to the edge of the village, where an ancient shrine loomed, its stone gate crumbling beneath centuries of moss. Across its surface, smeared in blood, glowed a warning. He who breaks the seal shall suffer 10,000 vengeful spirits. Inside, the air was suffocatingly cold. Headless statues lined the walls, their torsos streaked with dried blood. The ground reeked of decay. At the center stood a rotting altar. Upon it lay a scroll made from human skin, the letters carved in dried crimson. A black candle sputtered to life on its own, flame flickering in eerie blue. By its glow, the words became clear. The breaker of the seal shall endure 12 trials. To survive them is to live. To fail is to be imprisoned here. Soul shackled for eternity. Whispers rose from every corner. Some male, some female, some shrill, some guttural, until they blended into a chorus. You have entered, there is no way back? And clutched his head as blood seeped from the cracks in the walls. Oozing down like tears, the statues trembled, their ruined necks twisting toward him. Headless bodies tilting forward as though to watch. Then the first drumbeat struck. The ground quaked beneath him. A second beat thundered, then a third. With each strike, the darkness deepened, and a frigid wind screamed through the shrine, and stumbled out, but the stone gate slammed shut behind him with the groan of iron chains. The trials had begun. Chapter 5. The drums of the faceless dead. The rain pounded harder, but every drop seemed thick, heavy, almost like blood. Mist thickened until the world was no more than a pale blur. The drums returned, closer now. Each beat reverberated through En's chest, as if his own heart were being struck. The ground shook, the fog pulsed. Drawn to the sound, he found the village square. The old pavilion sagged, beams rotting, roof collapsed. Yet in the center, a circle of figures moved. They wore white mourning robes, their clothes soaked and clinging to emaciated bodies. Over their faces they wore smooth, crumpled white masks, void of eyes or mouths. Together they beat the drums, chanting in a language ancient and harsh, their voices muffled as though from throats long rotted. And froze. His hair bristled, his skin crawled. These were not the living. One figure snapped its head toward him. Cracks split the mask, fragments falling away to reveal a hollow skull beneath. In its sockets, blue fire burned. The others followed, ripping away their masks. All skulls, all grinning, all aflame. Their laughter erupted, echoing across the square, blending with the drums into a hideous symphony. And screamed and turned to run, but the earth beneath him softened into thick sludge. Each step dragged him down. His shoes sucked into the muck. The faceless mourners tightened their circle, moving faster, beating louder, their skeletal hands stretched out, bony claws raking the air toward him. At the center of the square, a massive drum materialized, towering above. Its hide gleamed slick and crimson, as if stretched from flayed human skin. Each strike of that colossal drum made En's blood surge and clot, his strength leaching away with every beat. From within its depths, a voice thundered, low and resonant. The gate is open. Are you ready? Chapter 6. The Road of White Bones. The drums ceased. Silence fell, oppressive and absolute. The world seemed to tilt. And when En blinked, he was no longer in the square. Before him stretched a long, narrow path, flanked by towering walls of darkness. But they were not stone. They were bone. Tens of thousands of skulls and skeleton fragments stacked upon one another, forming walls that climbed into infinity. Hollow eye sockets glowed faintly red as if alive, following him with every step. The ground beneath his feet was paved with shattered bones. Each step crunched with a sharp crack, like the echo of broken spines. En forced himself forward, but the path twisted endlessly. Every turn brought him back where he began. Then the skulls stirred. They clattered together, rolling across the path, hissing and clacking in eerie rhythm. From their sockets poured white maggots, writhing in thick streams that slithered toward his feet. In gagged, stumbling back, but behind him, the bone walls shifted, closing in with grinding force, hurting him deeper. Suddenly, skeletal hands burst from the walls. Dozens, then hundreds, their claws reaching for him. "Go on, or die," hissed voices from the skulls. And screamed, shoving past. Hands raked across his arms, tearing his flesh, warm blood staining the pale bones. Ahead, the path split into three. He froze, panting, unsure. The walls trembled violently, skulls chattering, laughter rattling from their hollow mouths. The silver bracelet on his wrist burned hot, flaring with light, its glow shot down the center path. Without hesitation, and charged through, the bone hands clawed after him. But he forced himself forward. At the end stood a black door, its surface slick with blood-etched runes. As he touched it, all sound ceased, the hands withdrew, the skulls collapsed into dust. The door creaked open. Asterisk. The second trial, the whispers breathed. Your blood has seeped into the bones. Chapter 7. The woman in white. The door shut behind him, and the darkness thinned into mist, and found himself standing in a narrow alley within the village. The rain had stopped, yet the fog was so thick he could barely see his own hand. Silence pressed against him, broken only by the frantic thudding of his heart. He moved cautiously down the path, flanked by collapsing houses. Wooden doors hung ajar, creaking with a clack, clack, as though invisible hands were playing with them. A gust of wind swept by, rank with the stench of rot, and shivered, spinning around. There, half seen through the mist, stood the woman in white. She lingered this time. The soaked fabric clung to her frail frame. Her long black hair veiled her face. Her hands dangled, fingers grotesquely long and thin as bones, and tried to step back, but his feet rooted to the ground. The woman slowly lifted her head. Her skin was corpse pale. Her eyes were blank, white voids. Thick, black blood seeped from the corner of her mouth. Her voice rasped, hollow, like words dragged from beneath the earth. You have touched the seal. To survive, you must endure the trials, but every step will cost you blood. Anne's throat tightened, words choking silent. The woman's lips curled into a twisted smile. She raised one hand and opened her palm. Resting there was a silver necklace, crusted with dried blood. Carry this, and remember, every choice has its price. Then she dissolved into the mist. The necklace fell, clattering against the dirt with a metallic clang. And stooped, trembling, and picked it up. The silver burned icy cold, heavy as chains. The instant it touched his skin, a chill pierced his chest, squeezing his heart. From afar, the drums sounded again, this time, not distant, but closer, insistent. The mist parted, revealing a narrow lane that stretched toward an open field. The air reeked faintly of char and smoke. Clutching the necklace, and stepped forward. Chapter 8. The Field of the Damned. The field sprawled beneath the blood-tinged moonlight, but no green crops grew. Only withered black stalks jutted up like jagged teeth. The air reeked of charred flesh, thick and suffocating, and shoes sank into soft, slimy ground. It felt less like soil than rotting flesh. Then he saw them. Figures stood among the stalks, bodies charred and blackened, smoke still curling from their cracked skin. They stood motionless, mouths stretched wide, but no sound escaped. And froze. His gut screamed to turn back, but the mist behind had closed. There was no return. He took another step. All at once, the burned figures snapped their heads toward him. Hollow sockets locked onto his trembling body. A sharp crack echoed. The corpses lurched forward, not walking, but crawling on all fours, dragging their ruined bodies, bones grinding against earth. Their burned flesh sizzled as they moved. A voice shrieked right beside his ear. Though nothing stood there. Come back, join us. The clouds above tore open. Red rain poured down, thick, hot, metallic, blood. The burned corpses tilted their heads back, mouths open to drink. Their moans rose into a chorus of twisted ecstasy. Blood pooled on the field, soaking the roots. From the blackened stalks, skeletal arms sprouted, clawing up, seizing Anne's ankles, yanking him down. He screamed, thrashing as dozens of hands gripped tighter, nails tearing skin, leaving blistered burns. From the heart of the field, a massive figure erupted, a giant corpse, thrice the height of a man, its body charred and split, intestines dangling. A single blazing socket glared from its ruined head. It raised a colossal arm toward him. The drums thundered, shaking the night. A crimson door materialized at the far end of the field, pulsing like a heart, and roared, wrenching free from the skeletal hands. Blood streaking his legs, he sprinted, the ground clawing at him, the giant reaching closer. At the last second, he hurled himself through the crimson door. The screams cut off, the rain ceased, silence fell. A whisper coiled through the void. The second trial, you have passed, but your blood stains the soil. Chapter 9. The Blood Moon Night. And lifted his head, the sky had cleared, the rain of blood was gone, but above hung a swollen moon, red as a festering wound, spilling its sinister light across the dead village. His shadow stretched across the ground, but it was no longer his. The silhouette twisted grotesquely, head bent backward, limbs unnaturally long, fingers hooked like claws, and then, horrifyingly, it began to move on its own, and froze. The shadow detached from the ground, rising into a figure tall and gaunt, its skin wrinkled like dried leather. It had his face, but its grin stretched ear to ear, jagged teeth gleaming. "You are me," it whispered, its voice reverberating like an echo from a deep well. "And I will take your place." It lunged, clawed hands clamped around En's throat, crushing. Its eyes burned like embers, searing his soul, and writhed, gasping, fingernails scraping uselessly against its grip. Blood welled where the claws dug in. Just as darkness clouded his vision, a temple bell tolled in the distance. The sound rolled through the night, deep and resonant. The shadow shrieked, staggering back, its form twisting like paper in fire before dissolving into nothing. The stench of burnt flesh lingered, and collapsed, clutching his throat, coughing raggedly. Sweat drenched his body. The bell tolled again, guiding him. He lifted his gaze. Beyond the road, shrouded in fog, stood an old temple. Its roof collapsed, its gates sagging, the signboard rotted and unreadable. Yet the bell continued to ring, summoning him, wiping blood from his neck, and tightened his grip on the silver necklace, and staggered toward the temple. Chapter 10. The Abandoned Temple. The temple loomed beneath the blood moon, its roof half collapsed, stone statues shattered and strewn across the courtyard. The wooden gate sagged, swaying on rusted hinges with a groan that sounded almost like a dying breath, and pushed the gate open. Inside, the air reeked of incense long burned to ash. The cracked walls were streaked with dark stains. Headless statues lined the hall, their broken faces scattered across the ground, hollow eyes staring down in judgment. At the center of the courtyard stood a massive bronze bell, its surface cracked, coated in moss and age. Yet it tolled, again and again, its deep voice echoing through En's skull. He approached. The instant his fingers brushed the icy metal, the earth quaked, the bell shook violently, releasing a roar that sounded like the scream of 10,000 damned souls. From within its hollow frame, a skeletal hand clawed out. Then the figure emerged, an emaciated monk skeleton, draped in tattered robes, flames of blue fire burning in its sockets. Its voice thundered, brittle as shattering bone. "You, breaker of the seal? You are not the first. You will not be the last." En's knees trembled. The skeleton pointed at him with a bony finger. "To leave this place, you must endure all 12 trials. There is no salvation for one who has stepped inside." The ground split open beneath them. From the fissure burst flames, licking at the air, forming a black door covered in bloody inscriptions. At its crown, 3 massive words glistened. "The first trial." The door shook, booming like a war drum, and creaked open to reveal a void of stench and darkness. The skeleton's jaw clanged, a sound like rusted metal grinding. "Enter, or perish where you stand." And had no choice. He clenched his jaw, inhaled sharply, and hurled himself through the door. It slammed shut behind him with a sound like a coffin ceiling. Darkness swallowed him whole. Chapter 11. The first trial, facing oneself. The void pressed in, suffocating, En's breath fogged white in the freezing air. His flashlight flickered but cast no light beyond a single step. Whispers coiled from every direction, men, women, children, old and young, all blending into a chorus. "Face yourself, see your true nature." The darkness shifted. From its step to figure. End's heart stopped. It was himself. Identical in every detail. His face. His form. His voice. Except for the eyes. They blazed crimson. And the mouth twisted in a grin that tore too wide. In its hand glistened a rusted blade. Dripping with fresh blood. "I am the real you." The words overlapped with his own voice. Mocking. Echoing. The doppelganger lunged. Blade slicing the air. And ducked. The steel whistling past his throat. He stumbled back, only to find the darkness birthing more. Dozens, hundreds, of versions of himself emerged. All with the same hideous grin. All clutching blades. Their eyes burning red. They shrieked in unison. A sound like glass shattering. And swarmed him. And screamed, swinging wildly with a broken plank he had snatched from the ground. Blades tore his arms. Blood sprayed. He smashed one figure. And it burst into black smoke, only for two more to appear in its place. The void became a battlefield. His screams mingled with theirs. Blood drenched him. His strength waned, collapsing to his knees. He raised his arm feebly as the swarm circled. Their blades lifted high. Then, the silver bracelet on his wrist flared. White light exploded outward, scorching the darkness. The shadows recoiled, screaming as their bodies cracked and disintegrated into dust. The void shuddered, then fell silent. A voice lingered, whispering through the stillness. "The first trial is done, but your soul is fractured." Before him, a second black door opened, glowing faintly red, shaking, bleeding, and staggered forward. He knew this was only the beginning. Chapter 12. The second trial, the bone maze. The door slammed shut behind him, and opened his eyes to a narrow passage. Walls towering high on both sides. But they were not stone. They were bones. Endless white bones stacked together. Fused into walls. Skulls protruded. Their sockets hollow yet glowing faintly red as if watching. End's footsteps crunched across shattered fragments beneath his shoes. The sound reverberated like brittle bones breaking. He pushed forward, but the corridor twisted endlessly. Each time he turned, the path behind shifted. The bone walls groaned, grinding as they rearranged. From behind him, a clatter echoed. A skull fell, rolling across the ground until it stopped at his feet. Its jaw clicked open and shut. Clack, clack, as though laughing. More skulls tumbled from the walls. Some cracked open, releasing pale snakes that slithered toward him. Hissing, the walls trembled. From the sockets burst skeletal arms. Dozens, hundreds, clawing outward. Their bony fingers raked the air. Reaching for him. "Go forward, or be consumed," whispered 1,000 voices. And bolted, claws tore at his arms. Scraping flesh, drawing blood that splattered across the bones. The walls echoed with laughter. Sharp and shrill. Ahead, the path split into three. He froze, gasping, unsure which way. The walls quaked, skulls chattering, their eyes blazing. The bracelet seared hot against his skin. Flaring with light, the beam shot straight down the center path. Without hesitation, and plunged forward. The walls shuddered. The skeletal hands clawed after him. But he broke through, stumbling until at last a black door loomed ahead, carved with runes of blood. The instant he touched it, the laughter ceased. The hands withdrew. The skulls fell silent. The door creaked open. Asterisk, the second trial, hissed the whispers. Your blood has seeped into the bones. Chapter 13. The third trial, the river of blood. The door shut with a resounding boom, and the scene before it shifted. A vast river stretched wide and endless. But its waters were not water, they were thick, dark crimson, blood. The current churned violently, frothing with clots and chunks of flesh. Its stench choking the air. From beneath the surface, countless hands clawed upward, thrashing, reaching for anything to drag down. Faces floated, pale and bloated, mouths open in silent screams. Half-rotted corpses clawed at the river's edge, entrails spilling into the tide. A bridge spanned the river. Little more than a line of rotting planks lashed together. Gaps yawned between the boards. Some split, others barely hanging on, and stepped onto it. The bridge groaned, swaying beneath him. Below, the sea of blood boiled. Hands grasping, mouths gaping. Halfway across, a skeletal hand shot up, clutching his ankle, and kicked, panicked, but the grip tightened, cold and slimy. Then more hands erupted, clutching the bridge, tugging. The planks cracked, splinters flying. From the depths rose a face, a woman's face. Half melted, one eye dangling, her mouth opened impossibly wide. "Stay with us," she moaned. Voices rose from all sides. "Stay, stay," and roared, wrenching free. Stumbling forward, the bridge shook violently, planks collapsing into the river with a splash. Then the river surged. A monstrous corpse rose, swollen and towering, 3 times the size of a man. Its flesh split, innards dangling, maggots writhed within. It slammed massive hands onto the bridge, jaws gaping, breath rancid. The bridge snapped and sprinted, leaping with every shred of strength left. His hand caught the far ledge. Bloodied fingers scraped wood as he hauled himself over. Just as the bridge collapsed fully into the river, the hands below reached, then sank back into silence. The monstrous corpse bellowed once, then disappeared beneath the blood. On the far shore, a black door emerged, its surface slick with fresh crimson. Across it, words appeared in dripping script. "The third trial, you have passed. But your blood has merged with theirs." Chapter 14. The fourth trial, the eyeless children. The door sealed behind him, and a new path opened. A dirt lane stretched ahead, the moon bleeding its light across the weeds. The sound came faintly at first, childlike giggles. But they warped, sharp and piercing, like nails digging into his skull. From the mist rolled an old ball, battered and smeared with dark stains. It stopped at his feet. Then the children came, small, pale figures stumbled from the fog. Their clothes hung in tatters, but their faces, each one lacked eyes, only hollow sockets oozing black slime. They joined hands, skipping in a circle around him, chanting in sing-song voices. 1, 2, 3, the blood will flow for thee. 4, 5, 6, no escape from this. Their voices rose, shrill and mocking. One child dropped low, skittering toward him on all fours, head jerking unnaturally. It stopped inches from him, tilting its eyeless face up. From its sockets, 2 fat maggots wriggled free, squirming down its cheek, and staggered back. But more children closed in, tightening their circle. They laughed, teeth jagged, hands twitching. The chant grew louder. 7, 8, 9, you will not survive? 10, 11, 12, your grave is where you dwell. They lunged as one, icy hands grabbing his arms, his legs, his throat. Nails scraped skin, tearing bloody lines, and screamed, thrashing. But the children cackled, tugging him down into the dirt. The bracelet on his wrist flared, searing bright. Light burst outward, blasting them back. Their small bodies writhed, faces melting like wax, dissolving into smoke. Only the old ball remained, rolling lazily before crumbling into ash. Before him appeared another black door. Its surface bled fresh words. The fourth trial, their laughter now dwells in your soul. Chapter 15. The fifth trial, the coffin that seals itself. The door closed, and the world shrank, and found himself in a small, windowless chamber. At its center rested a single coffin, dark wood mottled with age. On its lid were carved symbols in dried blood. The air was suffocating, the odor of death thick as smoke. The coffin creaked, its lid shifted open, a breath of ice escaped, brushing Ed's face. A whisper slithered out, "Lie down, you must lie down," and shook his head. But the walls groaned, shifting inward, closing the room smaller and smaller. The coffin was the only space left. The blood symbols burned, glowing crimson. The whisper grew into a scream. Get in now," and trembled, but with no escape. He stepped closer. Inside, the coffin was empty. He lay down. The lid slammed shut above him with a thunderous bang. Darkness swallowed him whole. The air pressed in tight, crushing his lungs. He beat his fists against the lid, but the coffin tightened, wood turning unyielding as stone. Then came the hands, cold, unseen, slithering out of the walls, clutching his wrists, his ankles, his face. They pinned him, fingers digging into his skin, pressing until blood seeped into the coffin's wood. Voices wailed around him, mingling cries and laughter. "You are dead already, you belong to us." The coffin shook violently, sinking as if dragged beneath the earth. The bracelet flared, white light blazed through the cracks, searing the unseen hands. They recoiled, shrieking. The lid burst open, and gasped, drenched in sweat and blood. The walls were gone. Only another black door remained, looming in silence. Across it, bloody words dripped downward. The fifth trial, you have tasted death. Chapter 16. The sixth trial, the Mountain of Skulls. The door shut behind him, and En's breath caught. Before him rose a colossal mountain. But it was not stone. It was made entirely of skulls. Millions of skulls piled into peaks and ridges, stretching endlessly upward. Hollow sockets glowed faintly red, jaws clicking together in a grotesque chorus. Clack, clack, clack. The stench of rot and marrow hung heavy in the air. The only path forward was to climb. And pressed his trembling hands onto the cold bone. He began to climb, each step crunching brittle fragments, sending skulls tumbling and knocking against one another. Halfway up, the mountain stirred. Skulls rattled, rolling, jaws snapping. Their sockets blazed with red light. Laughter erupted, shrill and deafening. One skull lunged, biting into his hand. Teeth sank deep, blood spilling hot across its white surface. And screamed, hurling it away. But more awoke, hundreds wriggling free, biting, clawing, dragging him down. You will become one of us, the mountain moaned. He fought savagely, smashing skulls, scattering fragments, but for each he destroyed, more crawled forth, swarming. His skin tore, his blood painted the ivory. The bracelet on his wrist burned with white fire. Its light seared the nearest skulls, reducing them to ash, and roared, surging upward, clawing toward the peak. At last he hauled himself onto the summit, bleeding, breath ragged. The swarm shrieked below, climbing after him. There, suspended above the mountain's crown, hovered a black door, its surface pulsing with blood. He staggered forward, touched it. Words scrawled in blood blazed across it. The sixth trial. You have buried yourself in the skulls of the countless dead. The door opened. Darkness consumed him again. Chapter 17. The seventh trial, the hanging tree. When the void cleared, and stood in a barren field. At its center towered a tree, massive, ancient, its bark blackened as if charred. Branches twisted outward like gnarled arms. From those branches hung bodies. Dozens, hundreds. Some were fresh, faces purple and tongues lolling. Others were skeletons draped in rags. All swayed with the wind. Creaking creak, creak. The stench of rot pressed into En's lungs, suffocating. Then one corpse twitched. Its eyes snapped open, milky white, and locked onto his. Then another, and another. One by one, all the bodies opened their eyes. Yo, have come, they groaned. Voices rising from 1,000 rotting throats. The branches writhed, bending down. Roots burst from the ground, coiling around En's legs, dragging him down. One corpse slipped from its noose, crashing before him, its neck twisted at an impossible angle. Lips splitting into a sick grin. Join us, hang forever? The rest cackled, tongues snaking from their mouths, dripping black blood onto the soil, and screamed, thrashing as the roots crushed tighter. The corpses reached, clawing for his arms. The bracelet flared, flooding the field with blinding white light. The roots recoiled, the bodies shrieked, bursting apart into dust. The tree itself groaned like a beast in agony, splitting at its roots. A crack opened in its base, revealing a black door wrapped in dead roots. Across it bled words. The seventh trial. You have stepped past the dead, but your soul is left hanging, shaking, drenched in sweat and blood, and tore the roots aside and staggered through. Chapter 18. The eighth trial, the ghostly wedding. The world shifted, and now stood inside an ancient manor hall. Red lanterns swung from the beams, casting a sickly glow across walls smeared with dried blood. A feast table stretched across the hall. Bowls and platters laid neatly, but on them lay severed hands, gouged eyes, hearts still dripping, arranged with flowers wilted and black. Music rose, a distorted wedding march. Drums pounded like funeral gongs. Flutes wheezed like broken lungs. The great doors burst open. A procession entered. All wore crimson wedding robes, but their faces were covered by masks sewn from human skin, stitches leaking dark blood. At their center walked the bride, draped in red silk. Her veil trailed long across the floor. She did not walk, her feet hovered, carried by two pale attendants. From the shadows stepped the groom. En's breath froze. It was himself, a second En, dressed in crimson robes, face pale as bone, eyes blank. He took the bride's hand. The procession clapped and shrieked with glee, and staggered back, but spirits blocked his escape, whispering in unison, "You are here, marry her, marry her." The music crescendoed. The bride turned toward him. The veil slipped free. Her face was rotten, flesh sliding off, teeth bared in a gash of a grin. Her eyes were pits of black. "Beloved," she crooned, her voice thick with grief and hunger. "Tonight, you are mine." The wedding guests surged, mouths gaping, teeth like knives, hands outstretched, and spun toward a side door. But all doors slammed shut. Only one path remained, straight toward the altar. The bracelet blazed, white fire bursting forth, spirits recoiled, skin splitting, melting to ash. The bride shrieked, lunging, but raised the light, blasting through her form. She screamed, her voice shattering beams. Before crumbling into smoke, the hall collapsed, timbers crashing down. Amid the ruins stood a black door, its surface smeared in streaks of blood. "The eighth trial, you have broken the wedding, but your soul is bound," and staggered forward, breath ragged, and pushed it open. Chapter 19. The ninth trial, the endless mirror room. The door shut, and stood in a vast chamber. Every wall, the ceiling, even the floor, each surface was a mirror. His reflection multiplied into countless images, stretching into infinity. At first, they mirrored him exactly, pale, bloodied, exhausted. Then one smiled, too wide. Another licked a blood-stained knife. Others whispered, lips moving with words he could not hear. And's breath quickened. He stepped back, and all his reflections mimicked, except for a few. They moved on their own. The glass rippled. A reflection stepped out, taller, with crimson eyes and a grin carved too deep. Then another, and another. Dozens of And's doppelgangers spilled into the chamber, surrounding him. "We are you," they spoke as one, voices overlapping in thunder. "You cannot escape yourself." They lunged, blades flashing, and swung wildly with a shard of wood. Steel scraped his flesh. Blood spattered the mirrors. He smashed one figure, and it burst into smoke, but two more crawled out of the mirrors. The chamber became a storm of blood and steel, and screams mixed with manic laughter. He stumbled, weakened, bleeding, as the swarm closed in. Then he saw it. Among the mirrors, one did not reflect him at all. It showed only a shadow, vast and grinning, the source, and roared, forcing his way through. His bracelet blazed white, scattering the swarm in searing light. He smashed through the corrupted mirror. The glass shattered with an ear-splitting crack. All the doppelgangers shrieked, their bodies fracturing, collapsing into smoke. The mirrors around him cracked, spilling dark blood across the floor. From the rubble rose a black door, its surface dripping scarlet words. "The ninth trial, the mirror is broken, but the shadow remains in your heart." Chapter 20. The final trial, the Gate of Reincarnation. The door closed, and silence fell, and stood in an endless void. The sky above was pure black. Beneath him, the ground was ash, lifeless and dry. No stars, no sound, only the frantic drum of his own heartbeat. The ash shifted, rusted chains burst from the ground, dragging countless souls with them. They writhed in agony, bound and broken, eyes rolled back in eternal torment. Their screams thundered through the void. From among them rose the woman in white. She loomed before him, regal, like a queen of the dead. Her voice, cold and heavy, filled the air. "This is the Gate of Reincarnation. Choose, offer another soul to take your place, or remain here forever." The souls turned their hollow gazes upon him. Some begged, some cursed, their voices clawed at his mind. "Choose me, free me." "No, not me, you cannot escape," and clutched his head, trembling. The woman leaned close, her breath icy. "One choice, and you are free. Do you crave freedom, or sacrifice?" His hand gripped the silver bracelet. Visions of the trials flashed, blood, screams, laughter. Every step had cost him dearly. To condemn another soul meant living, but damned for eternity. And screamed, "No, I will sacrifice no one." The woman froze, then smiled, lips curling grotesquely. "Then stay with me." Chains erupted, binding his limbs. The souls surged, clawing at him, dragging him into the sea of ash. The bracelet burned, bursting with blinding light. For one fleeting moment, And's body dissolved into radiance. But countless hands seized his soul, chaining it down. The woman in white laughed, her voice echoing through the endless dark. You have chosen, and now, you belong here. For all eternity. The ash rose like a tide, swallowing all. Epilogue. The next day, a wanderer stumbled into the abandoned village. Inside the wooden house where the seal had once been broken, a single oil lamp burned, its flame pale green. On the dusty altar lay a new photograph. In it, and stood among faceless mourners. His eyes were blank white. His smile stretched unnaturally wide. And from within the photograph, the funeral drums began to beat again, announcing that another soul had joined the eternal curse.